Many people didn't pay close enough attention, but Sony originally included in some of their PlayStation advertisements a 6-axis controller with a lit up orange PS button. Now today I'm going to be showing you how to do this yourself with whatever color LEDs you want. Alright, any soldering project, it's important to use flux. Flux is basically a mild acid and it helps remove grease and oil. Your soldering material might include it, but using an additional canister will just make your life easier. This is a butane powered soldering iron. You can use any iron, whatever you have. And now I'm going to be showing you how to tint your wire you're going to be using to attach your surface mount LEDs to. All you need is about a 3-inch piece of wire, and we're going to be applying solder to each of the ends. Make sure your soldering iron is hot and clean. If you've used your soldering iron before, it does have oxidized metal on it, and it's important to remove that metal because oxidized metal is not a good conductor. Now I'm just going to quickly show you guys how to tint your surface mount LEDs. I'm going to be using this alligator clip and using it as a heat sink to make sure that my surface mount LED does not overheat while I'm tinting it. You can overheat your surface mount LEDs and that will ruin it, and using this alligator clip just make sure that won't happen. Use flux and make sure your soldering iron is nice and hot. Now that you've tinted both your surface mount LED and your wire, soldering them together is a pretty simple process. Just lay your surface mount LED down, your wire over that, and apply your soldering tip to it. Disassembly. Now I'm going to show you guys how to disassemble your Sony DualShock 3 controller. There are 5 screws on the back. Basically all you have to do is use a Phillips head screwdriver and go ahead and remove all of them. A neat trick when disassembling any device is to use a magnet to make sure you don't lose any of your screws. The one I'm using just happens to be an extremely strong neodymium magnet. You can use whatever is on your fridge. It just helps to make sure your screws aren't going to go anywhere. Now if you haven't taken apart your controller before, it's important to note that there is a tab in the front in between both of the analog sticks. Just press in on the bottom part and try to pry it apart. As you can see, it's just this little tab. It's pretty simple. After you remove the plate, you have to push both the right and left buttons through and just set it aside. Now just carefully remove the battery, making sure you don't tear any of the wires, and what you're left with is your circuit board with your 6th and final screw holding it down. Just use your Phillips head screwdriver and place it with the rest of your screws. Now that you've removed your circuit board, there are 4 tabs holding clear plastic mount to the front half of the controller. It's not as difficult as it appears with me removing them. Basically, all you have to do is use your fingers and pull them apart, and it should come off pretty easily. Now just remove the entire assembly from the other half of the controller. And now I'm going to show you guys how to remove the ribbon cable. You don't have to completely remove it, just remove some of the tabs so you can access the panel directly underneath your PS buttons, start and select buttons. This is the start, select, and PS silica insert of my controller, and what I'm going to be doing is using an X-Acto knife to remove a small layer of the silicone material and use that as a recess area for my surface mount LED and wire to sit in. Just be very careful, remove a nice thin layer, don't go through, because there is a conductive pad directly underneath the center of the PS button. As you can see, I'm just going down a little ways and sliding the knife under. Since I also happen to have a white surface mount LED, I decided to go ahead and do one of the controller identifying LEDs that flash red, and they're marked 1, 2, 3, 4, and they designate which slot your controller's in. If you're not good at soldering, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but since I already had my controller open, I said, why not? Just make sure to use flux and heat up. First you have to remove the LED that's there, heat up both ends, and I kind of use the X-Acto knife to apply some pressure so that it would come off easier. Removed. Next I just proceeded to tint my second LED and then applied it to the circuit board and made sure to use plenty of flux and solder to make sure that I had a secure connection. And once that was done, I took a USB cord connected to my computer and tested it to make sure that it was on the circuit board. Now I'm going to be using an X-Acto knife to make a rectangular excision for my wires to go through. If you lay this piece of silicone down on your controller flex cable, you'll see, make sure that you're not making the hole over where a green colored conductive path is. As you can see on this diagram, the green designates where connections are being made. Make your incision such that there is no connections. And likewise, make sure your hole through your plastic piece is also lined up with this flex cable hole and with the hole that is in your silicone. I did mine with my soldering iron as far as the hole in the plastic goes, because I had to clean my soldering iron anyway because it was oxidizing. After I made the hole for my wires, I used some JB Weld to secure my LED in the recess that I made previously. Circuit board soldering. This is an image of my circuit board. The blue circle indicates where I made my connections. I just simply again used my solder iron, made sure I had enough flux, and made these connections. Make sure that your plus and minus are correct to your LED, otherwise your LEDs will not light up. Also, before you solder your LED to your circuit board, make sure that you have everything assembled. Put your LED through the silicone, put that through the flex cable and the hole you made in your plastic, and have that all together, because you won't be able to string your wires through once they're soldered. Once you've done that, that's about it. Um, Basically, all you have to do is put your screws back in, put your battery pack back on, and close it all up. Voila! Here's what your finished project should look like. Now, if you're like me and you find yourself wanting to chuck your controller when you get pwned, this definitely helps me from not doing that, because I just look down and I see how beautiful it is. Have a great day, and thanks for watching. I'm out.